Welcome back for some more Lesson 4. I'm going to make a new class. We're going to call it Lesson 4 Part 2. Don't forget to check that public static void main string args button so you don't have to do as much work. And I copied and pasted in my comment block, but I changed what we're doing. So before, what we did is we showed you how Java is like algebra. Now, the rest of this is going to be how Java is not like algebra. So get excited. So say you have an integer that we'll call count and he's equal to 15. So what you can do, instead of just constantly creating a new integer variable to add to this, we can increase this count. So what we'll do is we'll say that count, which is our new count, is equal to the old count plus 5. So let's test that. And by testing it, we're going to do a system.out.print. And all we're going to print is count. So if it starts at 15 here, it should be 20 here. So I'm going to put in, these are called rems, by the way. When it's a comment block up here, it's a comment. But when it's at the end of a line, it's called a rem, short for remark. So go ahead and hit run. And it gives you 20. All right. You can also do the same thing to subtract it. So count equals count minus 10. So now what it's going to do is it's going to say our new count is what the most recent count was, which is 20. And then it's going to subtract 10. So it should give us 10 as an answer. So then go ahead, and I'm just going to copy and paste the same line since we use the same variable, and run. And it does give us 10. So at no point does count reset, it just keeps changing. There's also an alternate way to write this. So if we had written, if we want to say count equals count minus 10, we can write it like count minus equals 10. And it's the same thing. And this is called a compound operator. And if you run it, here we go. Going to give you 0 now because we just subtracted 10 and we subtracted 10 again. So now it's the same thing up here. We can do a compound operator. So we can say count plus equals 5. So it's going to add 5 here, it's going to add 5 here, and it's going to subtract 10 and subtract 10. So we added 5 to 15, so we got 20. We add 5 more, got 25, and then we printed. Then with 25, we subtracted 10, got 15, subtracted 5 more, got 5, and then we printed. So we also have ways to increment and decrement. So these right here, what we just talked about at lines 18 and line 14, those are compound operators. You can also increment and decrement. So incrementing and decrementing is when you want to increase or decrease by 1. And the way you would do that is you would do count plus plus. This is the same as saying count equals count plus 1. Or count minus minus. So incrementing is plus plus, decrementing is minus minus. Now you might think that we aren't really going to use that, but it comes in so handy. So we will be addressing this a lot during the class, so make sure you kind of have a good understanding of that. So here's some info for you guys just on increment and decrement and the compound operators. So we have like x equals x plus 3. That just means that after this line, x is now equal to whatever it was before with 3 added. Increment is plus signs, and you can put the plus signs on either side of the x and it will work. And same thing with decrement. So if you have minus minus, you'll see it on either side of the x. And all it is it's increasing it by 1 or decreasing it by 1. Fun fact, increment is actually how the programming language C++ got its name. Okay, so maybe I lied to you. The plus plus and minus minus does kind of matter where you put it, and we're going to look at an example of that. So I set up int x equals 0 and system.out.print x plus plus. So you would think that it would print 1 for this, but it prints 0. So what this means is the location of the plus pluses does matter, because if you had plus plus x and ran it, it prints 1. So the moral of the story is that if you want the calculation done in the same line that you're using, you put the calculation first. If you want the calculation done for the next line, you put it after. So we're also going to look at some of the syntax for those compound operators we kind of talked about. So the compound operators that you guys will be using is like plus equal, minus equal, times equal, divided equal, and modulus equal. So an example of how you would use it in code would be that, and how you would actually break it down to what it actually does. So this is how you would also use it in code, and this is what it actually does right here. So if you're writing a code and you need to add 3 to I, you can use either I plus equals 3, or you can use I equals I plus 3. You need to be able to recognize both, but when you guys are writing code, it really doesn't matter which one of the two that you choose. So come back to Eclipse and we're going to test all those compound operators. So I'm going to set up a double and I'm going to call it P because I have not used P yet. And I'm going to set equal to 3, and I'm going to also set up Q, and it's going to be equal to 4. Now, if you notice, I set up a double, but I set them as integers. So you can do that, but when you print it, it's going to print as a decimal. So whenever you print that, that's just what's going to happen. So what I want you to do is set up 6 lines of code. On each line, we're going to test something different. So the first line, we're going to say P plus equals Q. And don't forget your semicolon. And then I put in another comment to let us know what that line does, because when we take out this comment to test it, we're going to want to know what it does. So what I have set up, and I actually ended up using 7. So the first one is P plus equal Q, then P minus equal Q, P plus plus, P minus minus, P times equal Q, P divided by equal Q, and P modulus equal Q. So what we're going to do is we're going to take off the comments one at a time and just make sure that it worked correctly. So I have 17.0 because in line 27, I didn't make that print line. So I'm going to fix that because it's really saying that that's 1, and then my answer is 7.0, but there it goes, so 7.0. So go through each one of these, take off the comment, and make sure that they work right. So we get -1, 4, 2, 12. And now you're going to notice something weird when we do the divided. So it gives you 0.75. So if we had left this as an int, it would have just given us 0, because if you divide an int by an int, it gives you the whole number instead of giving you a decimal. Because we have it as a double, it works. And then modulus gives us 3, because 3 divided by 4 would be 0, remainder 3. Okay, so that all works. So for lesson 4, you have some questions on Moodle, and then you also have a project on page 25 of your book. Good luck. Let me know if you have any questions.